all the way my Savior leads me. Cheers each winding path I tread, gives me grace for every trial, feeds me with the living bread.
What's up, everybody? Welcome, Chester ARP Church Devotional Podcast. I am glad you're here with us. John chapter 20, beginning in verse 11. Jesus' appearance to Mary Magdalene. He has been resurrected. We read that last time. Now we pick this story up here in John chapter 20, verse 11. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. And as she wept, she stood to look into the tomb. And she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had lain, one at the head and one at the feet. And they said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" And she said to them, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." Having said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing, but she did not know it was Jesus. Now Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking?" Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." And Jesus said to her, "Mary." And she turned and said to him in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord," and that he had said these things to her. There's a lot to take in about this story. There's a lot to point out. There's a lot to love about this story. One is that Mary is standing here at the tomb of Jesus. John and Peter have already been there. They recognize that the tomb is empty. The women have come. They've seen the tomb is empty. Mary Magdalene presumably either comes back with John and Peter or remains at the tomb after the other women return to tell the disciples that the tomb was empty. They found an empty tomb. And so Mary Magdalene is standing there. She stoops down to look into the tomb, maybe to kind of get her mind over to make sure she really sees what she remembers. We do that. You've done that, I'm sure. You got to have a second look at something. You're kind of staring at something. You're kind of going back over something, thinking, did I really just see that? Did I really just do that? Did I really just accomplish this? Whatever it is in your life, maybe you found, or did somebody actually put that together? Maybe you received some tremendous gift and you're just sitting there holding it and you look at it and you look at it like, is this real? Well, Mary Magdalene is looking into the tomb again to say, is this real? And while she looks in the tomb again, she sees an angel. And the angel says, right, "Why are you weeping?" Now, that's an interesting question. It's a question to which we know the answer. And it's a question, quite frankly, if you look at it, you think, it's obvious why she's weeping. She's weeping because the Lord's body is no longer there. And so we're told that she is weeping, and she turns around, and when she says that the body is taken away, she sees a man standing there. We're told it's Jesus. She doesn't know it's Jesus. And Jesus speaks to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" Again, asking the question, whom are you seeking? She thought he was the gardener, and she says to him, "Sir, if you've carried him away, where have you laid him? I'll take him away and put him in another tomb somewhere." And then Jesus says, "Mary." And at that moment, she realizes who Jesus is. Now, the question I have asked multiple times as I've read this story is, why did Mary not recognize Jesus? Why was Mary confused as to who Jesus was? I think that's a fascinating question, because Mary, if you think about what is really going on here, you think about the story of the gospel, Mary is one who is very familiar with Jesus. She is present with Jesus throughout his life and his ministry. She is one of the beloved women who goes to the tomb to anoint the body of Jesus for his burial. She is familiar with who Jesus is. She knows who Jesus is, and she's standing there, and she sees this gardener, this man that she presumes to be the gardener. She doesn't recognize Jesus. It seems odd to me that she would not know who he is. So why doesn't she? Well, I've talked about it, the idea, obviously her tears have blocked her aim and her view, and so in a sense where the tears are coming out of her face and her grief, she doesn't recognize that Jesus is the man standing before her, and so in a sense her vision's clouded, emotionally and physically clouded. So she doesn't recognize it's Jesus. There's a sense, too, where she just doesn't believe that Jesus is alive, right? I mean, think about this. If you were in the situation where you were married and you had to see a man standing there and you had a loved one who had died, and that man standing before you was actually your loved one come back to life, probably the last person you would think that that man would be your loved one. Why? Because your loved one just died. We don't experience resurrection in our daily lives. You go out to the graveyard and you look at all the tombs out there, and you look at all the graves out there, and the bodies that were put in those graves are still in those graves, right? People aren't being resurrected every day, and so this would be something that she would not dream even being a possibility. So she's emotionally hurting. Her tears are pouring down her face. She's sad, but also she can't conceive the idea that Jesus has been raised. And there's also a sense, right, in which Jesus' body is different. We know that Jesus is recognizable. His body has a lot of similar characteristics as yours and mine does. But at the same time, he is different. And the disciples struggle to recognize him at first because there's a difference in the body of Jesus. And so maybe she just simply doesn't process who he is. She doesn't recognize him, but she recognizes the voice when he says her name. And I just love that, because we in John 10 read Jesus saying, I'm the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. I call my sheep by their names. I have a name for my sheep, and they follow me. So when Jesus speaks her name, he is acknowledging to her his love for her, but also her name and the significance of being named by her Lord resonates in her heart. There's a familiarity, there is a love, there is a graciousness, there is a kindness that comes from his name, and a confirmation that he indeed is the Lord. I think that's wonderful. When God enters your life, you may say, man, there's no way in the world I believe that a man can be raised. But when Jesus enters your life through the ministry of his Spirit, and he calls you by name, you know that he is alive and that he is the one in whom you hope. You guys have a great day. God bless you. Catch you next time. See ya.
You carry me close to your heart.